Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout as we look ahead to FPL Game Week 3. This regular video is all about finding low owned and under the radar gems that FPL managers are perhaps ignoring but could score big. This time around we have the first goals and assists imminent tables of this season, and that's based on the first 2 weeks data. Not as strong as the first 4 weeks, but we'll give it a go nevertheless. We have some top tips for those like me who didn't have a very good game week. In fact, they maybe had a disastrous game week, but we've got some top tips to how to cope with that. Plus, we'll look at ultra differentials as we did last week. We'll reveal our teams, see how we got on with those ultra differentials, and take your questions in a live chat at the end. My name is Joe, and joining me to unearth some of those under the radar gems is Tom Freeman, Fantasy Football Scout's Deputy Editor. Tom, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay, thanks, Joe. Got 2 free transfers this week, and I need a bit of inspiration. So, looking forward to this one, which we'll kind of we can delve into our sides a bit later on after we've gone through the tables.
Indeed, yeah. So I didn't have a very good game week. You actually got double the points that I got. So I find these sort of doing a video the next day. Some people sort of like to hide, and it's not through bravery coming out after these bad game weeks. It's actually quite cathartic, and it's sort of, as you said, you've got 2 free transfers, and you've got looking for some inspiration. I also have 2 free transfers and looking for some inspiration, and possibly with a fire or two to put out. Before we go on, I just want to remind people to do press that like button if you like this. A number of you in the live chat already. Do press that like button, and also do remember to subscribe if you're not already, or tell your friends to, so you can keep up to date with all our content. A welcome to all of those joining us in the live chat early. The early birds are Historia Films, Josh, A. Dawson, Multi-Levy, I'm trying to read that out, Joseph May, Let's Talk Vinyl, Tic Tac Dave, Soldier Boy, Francis, Luke, Aston Villa Bozzy, and many more. And CMC, I wish people had names instead of just random letters. CMC guy, hi, welcome you all. Okay, so what we're going to do before we're going to start off with these ultra differentials. So let's just see how we got on last week. So these are the ones I flagged up last week, the ones in blue that we should be sort of looking out for. Edouard was one for Crystal Palace. Didn't do anything against Arsenal, but that was partially to be expected. But he's just a player that I think we should monitor. 5.5, very low ownership. Then of just over 2%. Barnes didn't do anything for Newcastle. Perhaps wasn't expected to that particular week, but definitely a player on our radar under 5% owned. Tonali at Newcastle as well. Alvarez, he got us a goal. And just over 5% owned, and very popular this week. Although Man City could be signing more players, so his X minutes might go down. And Awoniyi, who is going for Jamie Vardy's record, is now 6 goals in 8 games in a row. So out of all of those, which ones? I mean, do you think are definitely ones to consider perhaps this week and beyond? And there's lots of other names in this table as well that I haven't read out, like Gross, for example.
Yeah.
Hwang at Wolves, I forgot. He got on the score sheet, didn't he?
He did. He scored. Yeah. So yeah, we've got a bit of joy, and I like Edouard. It was a tough game for Palace last night, which I think we all expected, and it sounds like Mateta wants to leave as well. That's always been a bit of a problem with the Palace striker, bit of rotation. And if he leaves, then that opens the door for Edouard to be a bit more secure in that role. But I also like Solanke. I've had my eye on him since pre-season, and he looked good, I thought, with Semenyo in attack for Bournemouth. The fixtures are tough for Bournemouth. I mean, they've got Spurs. I guess that could be quite an open game at the weekend. But then they go to Brentford. They've got Chelsea. So maybe now isn't the time for Solanke, but he will almost certainly become an option and a very popular pick at certain stages when the fixtures fall kindly. Looking down at the other names. Sorry, Joe, go on.
No, I was just going to say it's the Wolves players once again. I mean, they got hammered by Brighton, but this is Brighton, But they were still okay. They weren't too bad.
Yeah. Yeah, and they were good. They were good at United as well, weren't
Yeah,
they? And they were unfortunate to lose that.
yeah.
So
So these are exactly the kind of players and teams that we like on this show, because these are the ones people aren't talking about. They sort of come up unexpectedly and by surprise. And by, look at these ownership of these ultra differentials, all under 5% apart from Alvarez, and he's just over there. And this was in game week 2. That was there. Of note, Wolves are playing Everton this week.
yeah,
Everton do indeed look awful. They're the
yeah,
Championship side, and they're in the Premier League. So they're a team to target.
yeah. Yeah, we tore them apart at the weekend, which was
Yeah,
great. But Wolves have had 39 shots over their first 2 games.
yeah,
They scored just the 1 goal through Hwang. And you do get the feeling that they're going to score at Goodison, I
yeah,
think.
yeah.
For people who own Pickford, they'll probably play him this week because the alternatives like Turner and Ariola haven't got good
No,
fixtures. But I do expect Wolves to score there. So I do think that we'll probably. I mean, what have we got? We've got Nito and Hwang on the list now, and we
yeah.
we might see Cunha appear later, or maybe or
Well,
Sarabia or players like that. So
well, well, well.
they're interesting.
Well, let's have a look at the. I've done another table. I like this table, so
Yeah.
I might become a regular thing. We're going to do it for game week 3 as well. So ideally, we're on the lookout for those Wolves players who are playing Everton, who are looking good. Hopefully there might be some Aston Villa players on there as well, for you can give us your expert view on. And if there's any Brighton players, I'm a Pedro owner, very surprised he was dropped to the bench. There were also some quotes that came out from a journalist who interviewed Zerbi, was saying something about his pressing play, saying Pedro's excellent, really good, but he needs a bit of work on his pressing play.
Yeah.
I'd love to have known that before game week 1, but so that indicates he will share a game time with the likes of
He did speak about it, and it was in the presser on Friday,
Yeah,
and he mentioned it, and he said there would be rotation. I mean, it's very hard. It was very hard to know
yeah.
that Enciso would have come in, but I think that could be a risk. Like Villa as well, with Brighton, with Europe kicking in, people need to be aware of that now, I think.
Yeah,
So,
I think that definitely gives me alarm bells with Pedro.
yeah,
Like with Gabriel, we're going to have. When we come to live questions at the end, I imagine the chats are going to be full of questions about Gabriel and Gabriel
yeah,
replacements, what to do with him. But yeah, if a player's not nailed on, unless they're an exceptional super sub and they're quite cheap, which we have covered in the show in game week 1, it's probably time to move. And I don't know if Pedro is an exceptional super sub. He may need that full sort of 70, 80, 90 minutes. Let's have a look at these ultra differentials game week 3. Wow, good news. Good news for Wolves fans. There's a lot of them here. So this bodes well when they face championship-bound Everton. So once again, I've highlighted in blue the ones that I think could be of interest, but there's lots of other names in here. All under 5% owned, and I've sorted it by minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty. So he's been the best over the last 2 game weeks. I am going to sketch over Neil Maupay, who is top with his minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty every 77 minutes. Just 3 FPL points, just 1 start over those 2. It's just a familiar picture. He will, no matter what his underlying stats are, he's simply not of a quality. So we're going to sketch over. I wouldn't. He'll probably score brace next, but
well, I think it was Danjuma who came on at the weekend
yeah,
prior to Maupay. I think he's probably slipped down the pecking order a bit there anyway.
yeah. De Cordova
Good
Reed,
overread.
I should say. Lots of D's, lots of keys. Fulham 5.5, only 1 start though. Fulham without Paulinho don't look like they're just going to do a lot of defending and not do it very well. But nevertheless, he has got 8 FPL points and a minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty every 86 minutes. So about only 0.2% owned. I don't think many people are going to go there. Tough fixture coming up against Arsenal.
Yeah, he did actually hit the post, I think, against Brentford. I think he had a kind of a looping header, but yeah, they've got Arsenal and they've got City, so nobody's looking at Fulham.
Okay, next on the list though is interesting. It's Enciso. Talked about in pre-season, but his ownership was very low because people just didn't think he was nailed on. He's still not nailed on, but he certainly might be getting more starts than we thought. So it's looking. I mean, he was great. Two assists. One of his assists for the Solly March goal was quite exceptionally placed, almost freakishly exceptionally placed. But he's had a drop in price, 3.6% owned, a couple of assists, just that one start, 8 FPL points. No goals yet, but a minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty, 97 minutes. Good stats, good underlying stats from his one start. He is a tempter. I think if you need the money, he's a good enabler. He's a really good.
He's a good price, isn't he?
Yeah.
What is he? 5.4.
Yeah.
I love him as a player. I owned him for quite a bit towards the tail end of last year. Mm-hmm. The only worry I have with Enciso is he tends to pick up quite a few niggles. He always seems to be struggling at around the 60, 70 point mark, which I think is when he came off at the weekend, didn't he? And there was a bit of talk about an injury. Now, we looked into it a bit, and a few reporters were saying it was probably cramp. But I think that's just one to monitor. If you are looking at him, just wait for the press conference and see if De Zerbi says anything about it. I just see him as being a bit too risky for me, I think.
Yeah.
But he's got upside, hasn't he? If he plays, if he gets the minutes, he's going to do well.
Next on the list, with a minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty every 104 minutes, with a 15 mighty FPL points, is Bailey from Aston Villa, 5.5, another 5.5 player, 1.2% owned. People went for him this time last season, got a bit burnt. They've ignored him. Buendia is out with a long-term injury. With his one assist so far, a couple of starts. Do you think Bailey will be getting many more starts?
Well, he linked up really well with Diaby at the weekend, caused Everton loads of problems. But the problem with Bailey is he is so inconsistent. Right. All of his goals have come at Villa Park. He tends to save his best ones for the home games, and he can just go missing. He went missing in game week 1. He did a lot last year. He gets hauled off early quite a bit when it's not happening. I think you've got to spend a bit more if you want a Villa midfielder. Get Diaby, who was really unfortunate not to return at the weekend, but he's going to be the player. Okay. But again, we saw it at the weekend with Watkins and Diaby. With Europe, got a playoff leg this Thursday. Yeah. They're getting taken off early. Yeah. So if games are wrapped up, if we're 2-0, 3-0 up, I don't think they'll be playing the minutes. Certainly in Watkins' case, who is now off penalties as well. Yes. He's not going to be that 90-minute man when we've got Europe, I think.
So Watkins' appeal, this 8 million or so striker, his appeal was nailed on 90 minutes, penalties, off penalties, probably going to get hooked at 70 minutes with Europe. They've got attacking players now that can come in. Archer is still going to be off somewhere, we think?
Yes, because John Duran, who didn't feature in pre-season at all, he was surprisingly on the bench at the weekend, and it took him, 40 or 50 seconds to score. Yeah. Emery, after the match, said that it was Watkins and Duran competing for that position. So that makes me think Archer is either third in the pecking order, or he's going to go to a Sheffield United or get another loan somewhere. So I've got Archer on my bench, and I'm not expecting many minutes from him going forward.
No, he's third on my bench as well from now on. I'm expecting zero from him.
We'll talk about it later. I still think Watkins is a good option. He was never very good at penalties anyway, but I do think that his appeal has taken a little bit of a hit after the weekend, and we learnt a lot of the weekend, didn't we? And with penalties, various penalty takers and things. And I think Watkins' appeal has gone down just a touch.
Well, let's recap that with that penalties as well, because this has altered how we think. So as you said, people thought Watkins was on penalties. But then he wasn't. But Luis has taken them before, hasn't he? So
that was his first one for Villa. But really? He takes a lot of set pieces.
That's what I'm thinking. And those free kicks then.
Yeah, we spoke about it in pre-season. We said we thought they might be up for grabs at Villa because Watkins, he missed in pre-season, he missed in game week 37. We thought if Tielemans is on the pitch, that's the obvious solution to the problem, and it has been a problem for Villa. But then Emery said that it was between McGinn and Douglas Luiz last week, and Luiz obviously converted, and I expect him to take the next one now.
Okay, rightio. So that's him there. Bailey, interesting. Now we've got some Wolves players here. I didn't mention the other big penalty news. Saka, Arsenal. So you own Odegaard, so you're obviously delighted with that. But Arteta says that he was surprised. But then he's also said consistently in pre-season, I'm going to keep surprising opponents and change things up all the time. So do you think he was really surprised, or that you think?
Well, it sounded like if he was lying, he's a good liar, because he kind of said that he's well, maybe, yeah. I mean, he said that he said that's the leadership group, and the leadership group, the senior players there, they get to decide, and if they're happy with it, he's happy with it. Whether or not, I mean, Saka is another player who is, to me, he's never looked completely comfortable taking them, and Odegaard looked pretty confident. I mean, I got super lucky with my team. I wasn't expecting him to be on pens, but yeah, that's going to be really interesting, the next one. It wouldn't surprise me if Odegaard stepped up again, but again, if Saka gets the next one, I wouldn't be kind of thinking, oh wow, if that happened either. So maybe it'll be somebody completely different. I don't know.
We know goalkeepers do their homework. We've seen it written on the bottle. Was it Jordan Pickford's bottle?
Yeah, it was.
And so Johnson would have been prepared for Saka, and then up steps Odegaard. And you see teams doing it as well. I've frequently seen that at Newcastle with Trippier holding the ball. You think Trippier's going to take the penalty, and then in the last second he just chucks it to Isak or Wilson, whoever.
Yeah.
So I just wonder, but I wouldn't categorically say Saka is off penalties.
No, I wouldn't.
But I definitely would. It does look like Watkins is off penalties if Luiz is on the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
There were no other penalty issues, were there?
Well, there was the Chelsea. Enzo Fernandez stepped up. We didn't know. Jackson looked like he wanted it, and then Enzo took it, missed it. And it wouldn't surprise me if Jackson takes the next one. But again, it's up in the air. We don't know. So, yeah, we learned a lot. We didn't really learn that much this weekend, but there were certainly some interesting kind of set piece takers, which we weren't expecting. So let's see if it continues.
Definitely. Okay. And just no more penalty issues, were there?
No, I don't think that's it.
Yeah, I forgot about the Enzo Fernandez one. His role is very different. For those that play the Sky game, this is my once hourly mention of the Sky game. He was very important last year for passes and tackles, for the bonuses there. But now he's got a different role, so he could be more potent for goals and assists.
I quite like him for FPL. If he's 5 million, but a lot depends on those penalties. I really wish he had tucked that one away, and we knew he was on them.
Oh, one last thing. Big Tips has pointed out that Salah's penalty was awful. Yes, he indeed did.
Of course.
Eventually, it was, yeah. So Salah, incredibly, is still on penalties despite being actually awful at them. And he missed, but he did score on the rebound. So just the what's that? 3 points for that goal. So I was expecting Salah to derail my week, not everyone else, but Salah was. Yeah,
thanks for reminding us of that in the chat. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest ones, whether or not Salah stays on penalties. I'm not sure he will, but so that's another one to add to the list. We could have a whole show on penalty takers.
Well, McAllister, who is suspended, I guess, for the next game,
if the appeal isn't successful.
So he was red carded, so he could be on them. He is exceptional. So Josh in the live chat is pointing out, wouldn't surprise me if Salah is off penalties. He's been 50-50 at best. He
actually said in pre-season he doesn't enjoy taking them either. But
we don't enjoy him taking them.
No, he likes to score goals. So it'd be quite a tough conversation to have with him. But you've got McAllister's excellent, isn't he, from this spot?
We've already mentioned that Edwards. He's still on this list. So still an ultra differential minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty every 109 minutes. But I'm going to lump together a few players here. We've got Fabio Silva at Wolves, just that one start, just the 2 points, but a minutes per expected goal involvement every 107 minutes. Just behind him, Kuna at Wolves, 0.6% owned, 4 points, no goals, no assists, 2 starts though. And strong minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty stats of 120 minutes. So looking good there. And then you've also got Neto. Like Bailey, was popular this time last season before people started moving him out. So that's probably putting people off. 0.3% owned. FPL points 3. Starts 2. But just behind Awonyi there, 127.7 minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty. So Yeah, Wolves. We've spoken about them a bit. I think if you were going to go for an enabler or a differential Wolves player, this is the week to do it because they're against Everton, and then perhaps you can bench them for the tougher fit games.
Yeah, I don't think I'd look at Neto just because I think midfield is stacked at the moment.
Yeah.
But forward is an area where people are probably looking to make moves. If you own Pedro, which I don't think you have to make that move this week, by the way, but I think he is an option. You could do that. So yeah, it'd be Cunha or Fabio Silva. A lot of the Wolves fans have been calling for Fabio Silva to start. He did at the weekend, but in typical Wolf fashion, he missed a good chance. And it just depends who you land on. Cunha looked really good at Old Trafford. Some great runs through the middle. He is probably more nailed. So that's probably where I'd be looking at the moment. Whether or not you want to, I mean, maybe you want to see Wolves deliver on their underlying, their shot count before considering them.
Who's on pens at the moment for Wolves?
I think it'll be Cunha.
Okay. Right,
If somebody in the chat disagrees or knows more, maybe correct me on that, but I think it will be Cunha.
Okay. FPL Rays in the chat, probably echoing the sentiments of many people listening and watching to this. Surely we aren't going to look at Wolves players. Well, that's exactly what this show's all about. It's exactly about those players and teams that people say, surely we can't be thinking about them. Next weekend, they end up scoring a brace because they've got strong underlying stats, and these are sort of under the radar gems. It's the whole point of the show. So surely we can be looking at them. Whether they'll deliver is another thing. A couple more players to mention. Awoniyi against Manchester United this week. So Awoniyi, it might not be too late for Awoniyi. If he's getting Jamie Vardy-esque consistency. He's against Manchester United defence, which does look awful at the moment. So what do you think?
Yeah, well, he scored 6 games in a row now, stretching back to last season. He scored 8 goals in those 6 games. A bit of a word of warning, both of his goals this year have come from the grand total of 2 shots. So you would want that to improve, but I think it can. I think if you look at Awoniyi last year, he tends to play around about 70 minutes and he tends to get 2 or 3 shots per game. So I think when he is playing, he was only a sub at Arsenal, wasn't he? So I actually think, in that Forest team, when you've got players like Gibbs-White and Johnson creating for him, I think he could do well. But the fixtures are bad for Forest. They travel to Man United, Chelsea and Man City in the next 4 game weeks. So not now. Okay. Don't think anybody's looking at him. But again, it's more about being aware of players like this. So they're kind of on your radar a little bit, and then when the fixtures turn, you have a bit more knowledge about them.
Right, yeah. Lots of hate going on for the Wolves tips here, but let's hey ho. I got a terrible score, and I was packed full of Arsenal and Manchester United players and Spurs players, and they none of them delivered. So meanwhile, the Wolves players. They did breach the mighty Brighton backline, and they did very well against Manchester United. So early days, but you never know.
I think it's they're the kind of players which we're not going to consider. But next week when they score, we can come and act all smug. So let's see.
I'm away next week, so I think it'll be David standing in for me. So pass on to David to look smug.
But I completely understand the chat. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to bring in a Wolves player this week. But when the fixtures ease, maybe there might come a time when Cunha or somebody like that could become an option.
Okay, and final player to mention, Sarr at Tottenham. 11 FPL points, just that one start, 1.5% owned. This is where Spurs fixtures do turn quite good. Maddison left in a protective boot, which he says was a precaution, and I understand some scan has been going on this week. That could go anyway. That could be, yes, he's absolutely fine, or it could be that he's only fine for the bench, or it could be that we're going to get some announcement of some terrible injury and he's going to be out for a few weeks. So Sarr could be an option. So whereabouts does Sarr play in Tottenham's makeup? And is he someone to consider? Or is he just too ultra differential?
No, he's played on the right of the midfield 3 against United, and he was really good. He had 5 shots. He had more shots than anybody in that game. He's 4.5 million. I'd say it's a box-to-box role, but he drives forward a lot. He gets forward. And at 4.5 million, It just depends if he's going to start each week. Skip played game week 1, Saar played game week 2. I think Postecoglou is going to try a few different players out in these early weeks. So you're probably off better sticking to the super nail players.
Yeah.
One to monitor at 4.5.
Okay, so interesting names there as well. Let's move on to the first goals imminent table of the season. This works best with 4 weeks worth of data, so 2 weeks is a very small sample size, so take this with a big pinch of salt, but nevertheless I have tweaked it. It usually is 10 shots minimum to be on this table. I've tweaked that down to 5 because we've just got the two game weeks so far, and if I was here next week I'd tweak it up to 7. Let's have a look. This is the first goals imminent time, so I'm expecting to see all my players on it, because a lot of them put up some very good underlying stats, but much to my hatred for them, none of them delivered on it. So let's have a look. This goals imminent game week 3 based on 2 weeks data. Neil Maupay's top. I am going to sketch over him again, because he's a Nathan Redmond of a player. But next up is Jackson. Now, not in my team, but he's definitely a target for me, especially now I've got Pedro to deal with, and I do have 1.5 million in the bank and 2 free transfers. Already in your team, he's had 3 big chances, missed all 3 of them, no goals. But he's had 2 shots on target, but he's had 6 shots in total, 6 inside the box, and he crucially started both there, and expected goals delta. This is what he should have got. So this is what he should have got, expected to have got 1 1/3 of a goal, so over a goal should have achieved in the first 2. There was a particular header I saw where he looked in the right place, but his body was in sort of the wrong shape to get the ball under control, which I guess is a lot of that expected goal delta is accounted for. But yeah, you must be pretty happy with Jackson. Is he a transfer target for those like me for good reason, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. He's missed a few chances, and it's been quite a frustrating watch as an owner. But he looks a real handful. He looked a handful against Liverpool, and he did pretty well for periods against West Ham at the weekend. So I wouldn't hesitate to bring him in. He's got Luton next at home. He's got Forest at home after that, and then he travels to Bournemouth. Okay. Watching Chelsea, it's felt a little bit like the same old Chelsea so far this season, in that they've created a lot of chances but haven't been converting them. But Luton and Forest at home, I would back them under Pochettino to win both of those games, and I think Jackson will get off the mark this weekend.
Yeah, he's one of my top targets. I'll talk when we talk about our teams in a bit. A lot, whether I get him in is going to weirdly depend on whether Maddison is fit. I'll explain a bit more about that later, because I do have two transfers, and I'm quite keen to get a new striker in. Next up, Neto and Kuna. Wolves, so they are on the goals imminent table as well. So ultra differentials, those expected to get a goal over their time. So Neto, 5 shots, all inside the box, 2 on target, but none of them sort of so-called big chances. Kuna, however, 2 big chances, missed them both. A couple of shots on target, 4 shots inside the box out of his 6 shots, expected to got a goal over these 2 games. I think we've spoken about them in length, and I think people in the live chat will probably kill us if we talk about
switch off.
But Wolves are there. The stats say Wolves are okay, and they play Everton, who are terrible. So let's move down to this pair here, and I am pleased they're on this table, and I want to see them get off the mark. Fernandes at Manchester United and Rashford. Go with Fernandes first. He's had a big chance, he missed it. He's had a shot on target. I hope he's on the assist imminent table. I'm also going to fire up in a sec as well. But he's had 2 starts, as you would expect for him. Shots inside the box, 3, 7 shots. So not bad for a midfielder, 7 shots, 3 inside the box as well. A few long-range efforts there. And then Rashford at 9 million, 2 big chances, missed them both, 2 shots on target. 7 shots though, same as Fernandes, all 7 inside the box. They're playing a different role, 2 starts and just 2 shots on target. So I mean, I'm hopeful for these. What I hope is that Martial plays as a centre forward. Rashford is on the left where he's better. Fernandes carries on doing what he's doing. Fernandes carries on doing what he's doing. My feeling is that Fernandes should have got me a haul this week, but didn't. What's your take on these two?
Yeah, he missed a sitter, didn't he, at Spurs? Really thought he'd hit the back of the net with that chance in the first half. But I'm not worried that he missed the sitter. I thought he was really poor in the second half against Spurs, and that kind of had me worried a little bit. A lot of his passes were off. But it's one of those where when you play Forest at home, now Forest were okay at Arsenal in game week 1, but they were the worst travellers of all Premier League sides last year. They were terrible on the road. So I think you've got to keep him, and if you own him, and stick with it this week. Rashford, you said it, Joe. He's not as effective through the middle, is he? So we want either Sancho or we want Martial to come in at the weekend and play through the middle and free him up to go back on the left flank and replace Garnacho, who hasn't looked great either, to be honest. So, yeah, I'm going to stick with them another week and then reassess. I think they play Arsenal game week 4. So I might look to, regardless of what happens this weekend, I will probably sell one of them after that. Yeah. But, I'm going to give them one more week. But if they flop this weekend, I mean, what a disappointment they'll have been after, we all got them in for these first 3 games, didn't we? And to not return either of them would be absolutely... I would have never expected that. So, yeah, but let's just hope that, like you say, Fernandez's underlying numbers are good. Yeah. Let's hope he can deliver on them.
My instinct is to keep him as the penalty taker, and down the line Rashford goes. But if Rashford is suddenly playing on the left wing, and perhaps Højlund comes back in, or he starts working out with Martial, then he would be hard to sell. But at 9 million, as opposed to whatever he was last season, 6.5, 7 million, he's taken up some money that can go elsewhere. Odegaard, for example, if he is on penalties, you've already got him. But for somebody like me, I don't have 6.5 midfielders, hence my terrible score this week. So, and Bomo is itching to come into my side. Matoma is itching to come into my side as well.
Rashford has to be doing a lot more this year. He's not 6.5 like you say anymore. So there's going to be more questions asked of him when he goes through a lean spell.
Yeah. And so, the way I think of players like that, I give them about 3 weeks because that gives a range of opponents. But if Fernandes and Rashford are both blanking, if Manchester United's main attackers that you want are blanking against Nottingham Forest and they're being poor against other teams as well, like the likes of Spurs, then why have I got them? And that's when I start thinking about moving on. But I definitely think they're holds at the moment. Definitely holds, because it's such a good fixture at home to Nottingham Forest, one of the best. Lamina at Wolves, that's another Wolves player. Lamina, only 5 million. Couple of he's had two starts, 5 shots and 2 inside the box, none on target though. So that sort of sums up. You can see in stats what his game's all about, not firing on target. Eze, that's good to see Eze on here though, for those who've invested in him. No big chances yet, but 12 shots, 6 inside the box, just at 1 on target. But expected to have scored 3/4 of a goal, whatever that looks like. So getting on for nearly a goal over those 2 matches. That's good. Eze, he's got to be a hold at the moment. He, especially against Brentford, who Brentford have had a good start, but Crystal Palace are very attacking.
Yeah, he's putting up a lot. I don't think anybody's taken as many shots as him this season so far, and Haaland included. And Salah, he's had 12 shots. He's created a lot of chances too. I think if I owned him and I didn't own Mbeumo, I think I would be tempted to make that change. Okay. But I don't think he's a problem holding him. No. I think what have they got? They've got Brentford, Wolves, Villa, Fulham. So Brentford, Villa, not easy places to go, but it wouldn't surprise if he returned. A couple of reasonable home fixtures. So it's fine to hold him. But I think if you don't own Mbeumo, knowing the fixtures that Brentford have got coming up, I can understand people making that move. But Eze's a great player, obviously. Arsenal was always going to be a tricky game, wasn't it? But he'll come good, I'm sure.
And Phil Foden is next. So it was his chance creation that caught the eye in the last match. But he's goal imminent, according to this, over the first 2 matches. So he's had 6 shots, 4 inside the box, so a lot of close range efforts, a couple of starts. 2 of his shots have been on target. He's expected to have scored just over half a goal, whatever that looks like. And he's had a big chance and missed it, as I said. So, yeah, Foden. It's probably the same old story. If someone said Foden is nailed on, I would get him because he's great. But I know every time I've got him in, I've maybe got 1 game out of 3 out of him. So and Man City are going to bolster. So even if I thought he was going to play this game, he's possibly a sell later. Is that the thing with Foden? Just the X minutes fears.
Yeah, I mean, he was brilliant against Newcastle, wasn't he? He absolutely ran the show from that central position, which we thought he might get more of a chance of this year. And he was absolutely excellent. De Bruyne's injury helps his minutes a little bit. I know that he's not directly playing in that, always in that De Bruyne role. He's sometimes out a bit wider, but I think it helps his and Alvarez's prospects. I'd happily buy Foden this week. I think that the fixtures are very good. I'm not saying he's going to start every game, but I think he'll start a few, and I think he'll come off the bench in the others. So yeah, I think he's a great option.
Okay, I'm sort of, because I'm a Pedro owner and a Gabriel owner, I'm veering towards this nailed. I thought I was getting too nailed on players, but I'm veering on towards the likes of Mbomo, Madison. I've got
the more secure
Fernandez. I want the real secure ones. And just before we move on to the last name on the list, he's a big one. William Olafsson has joined us in the chat, saying he's new to FPL and he's a bit confused by the cost of transfers. What they mean in points. He said he's removed Fernandez for Foden and it's cost him 4 points. So he's probably already made another transfer. And so what happens is you get one free transfer a week, just for those who are new to FPL. You get one free transfer a week. Every other transfer after that point costs you 4 points. So if you make 2 transfers, you get 2 extra transfers on top of that one free one. It costs you 8 points. But
and the deadline, of course, was 6:15 on Friday. So if you've made a transfer since then and then made another one, that's why.
You can carry a transfer over, and so you can get 2 free transfers, but then it stops after that. So you can only carry 1 free transfer over to the next week as well. So I hope that explains that a bit. And good luck. In fact, no, I hope you don't have good luck with that decision personally, because I have Fernandez. So I hope you crash and burn. No, I don't mean that. I hope it goes well for you personally, but for me, I hope it doesn't. The next name on this is Salah. Whenever Salah's on the goals imminent table, unlike Neil Maupay, he doesn't tend to last that long because he tends to score. So he has had his expected goal delta. He's expected to have scored over half a goal more than the one he's scored. He's the only one on this table who's actually scored a goal, and that was a penalty miss and then rebound. He's had 3 shots on target, 5 shots inside the box, 8 shots, and of course, obviously 2 starts, 3 big chances, but he's missed a couple of them. What's interesting about this is that the narrative with Salah going in, he was more creative. He's more on the wing. And so he was being more of a creator. We thought he would get more assist potential. That's the way it sort of was panning out in pre-season in the first game. But he's appearing here. 8 shots, 5 inside the box. That's not too shabby for Salah, is it?
No. Salah, even when we talk about him being a bit more creative, he's still going to get a lot of. It's the nature of the player to shoot a lot. That's what he does. And so even if he's his starting position changes a little bit, he's always going to be a good option. I worry about the penalties now. I think there's a very good chance he won't take the next one. They've got Newcastle and Villa next, so I think if you own him, I think you could sell. I don't think selling Salah is ever a real priority, but I think that possibly selling him this week and redistributing those funds, that's what I would do personally. I think we spoke about in one of our first episodes, Joe, that we thought that the goals could be more spread around at Liverpool this year, and that's exactly what happened so far with Diaz and Jota and players like that. So when are you realistically going to captain Salah if you own him? You're probably not going to in the next few weeks. So I think you can sell him
a bit further down the line when Liverpool's fixtures improve, which may be when I wildcard, because I'm very happy with a 3-5-2 at the moment, and I think I want to get Salah at some point, because I really want these steady Eddie players, and I'm willing to pay big bucks for them to actually turn up on the pitch for me. So maybe not now, but money is not as big an option as people perhaps thought. No Kane. I've been sitting with 1.5 million in the bank. I mean, I've got ways to spend it, but I could have and many people easily got a Salah and Haaland team in, and they're the only 2 big premiums that we want.
he'll absolutely come back onto the radar
Yeah.
once this little run's
Yeah.
out the way. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So I'm personally just people there forward thinking. That's what I'm looking at personally, and it sounds like you are as well, Tom.
yeah, yeah.
Let's move on to assists imminent. So we want to see some of these names and the heroes again because that means they're going to be scoring and assisting more FPL points. I say so. This is based on 2 weeks. I have, I think I did it to 7. So no, no, a minimum of 5 chances created over the first 2 weeks, and then I put their expected. So this is over and above what they got. There's only 1 assist from Foden here, so largely when it says expected assist delta, that's what they should have scored really. But Foden actually marginally overperformed. The expected gods demanded that Foden hand back a third of his assist, whatever that means. But nevertheless, he's still a good option. 9 chances created right at the bottom of this table here. Fernandes is top. So underlining what we were saying about Fernandes, 7 chances created. He's taken 4 corners, 3 successful crosses. He's expected to have got a little over an assist over those 2 matches. So it's what we were saying. I think his owners can feel a little bit unlucky. Gross is next. He's sort of moving up this. He's just always there. He's always going to play. Doesn't matter where he plays. He's still got that assist potential. And De Zerbi, like all Brighton managers, they've all loved him. He's a great player. 8 chances created, 3 corners, 1 successful cross. So yeah, he's definitely on the radar. Gibbs White, we talk about the Nottingham Forest fixtures, which might put people off. But look at Gibbs White, when Nottingham Forest fixtures improve, 9 corners, 5 chances created, 6 successful crosses, which is the same as Eze, who's next on the list at 6.5. 8 chances created, 6 corners there. So I'll stop there. I mean, just out of those names so far, we've mentioned Fernandes a bit, really, but Gross we've mentioned a bit. Gibbs White though, it's the fixtures though, isn't it? We're not going to go there at the moment, but these are good fixtures, good stats rather for him.
Yeah, well, we put him in the scout picks last week because we thought that home game against Sheffield United was perfect for him because so much goes through Gibbs White at Forest. He's on penalties, he's on set pieces, he's the main creator there. Didn't quite happen for him in that match, but I like him a lot. And again, I've said it a few times, but when the fixtures fall kindly, he'll be competing with Mbomo and Mitoma and Eze, and he's right up there with them in terms of potential, in my opinion.
Yeah. Next name, another Manchester United player, Luke Shaw. 6 chances created, 6 corners, 3 successful crosses. Should have got at least half an assist. None so far. Another player. People are thinking of getting rid of him, but he looks good to go this week against Nottingham Forest. I think it's, if you're thinking of selling him, give him this week definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean it's a bit like Fernandes. If United aren't scoring, it doesn't matter how much you're creating, that you're not going to see a return on that. But you've just got to hope that it turns this weekend.
If it doesn't, then I'll probably join people in removing them. Already, so many people are removing Manchester United players this week. They've seen enough, but got to give them that non-Forest game. Enzo Fernandez next up. Chelsea, they've got 3 really great fixtures in a row, haven't they? Starting with Luton this Friday. You've mentioned him already, but he's got that assist potential here. 6 chances created, 6 corners, so he's dominating set pieces. 3 successful crosses. Should have got at least half an assist. There's not much more we can say about him. He does look like he's got this different role. Neto, we mentioned the Wolves players before, so good to see Neto here, as well as the goals imminent and ultra differential there, but 6 chances created. Trippier, this is good. This is getting our radar out for when Newcastle's fixtures improve. They've started well, they look good. Trippier's gone up to 6.5 million, 5 chances created, 6 corners, 5 successful crosses. I'm still tempted to go for someone like Botman still for Newcastle, just to save a bit of money and plough that money into attack a bit more. Because I'm still not sure with Trippier, having owned him last season, whether they'll actually get those returns for me, above a clean sheet, which of course Botman would get. But yeah, are you sort of earmarking getting Trippier in your team? Presumably you're keen to get a Newcastle defender, or would you go?
Yeah, No, well, I've had a look at this morning. I think it's game week 5. They play Brentford at home, and then they've got a really good run after that.
Yeah.
I even think at home to Brentford, I think that's probably the time to move.
Mm.
And I had that exact same thought. Do you push 6.5 into
Yeah.
Trippier, or do you save 2 million and still get into those clean sheets, which I think they're probably going to get with Botman? And that's a really difficult decision. I don't quite know yet. I do like owning Trippier for bonus when they keep a clean sheet. He's because of those chances created. We saw it last year. He'll get bonus, so it might be worth that 2 million extra. I'm kind of thinking I'll probably be looking to sell a Stupinan maybe around about that time, possibly. So it is a bit of a jump up to Trippier, but I'm not ruling that out.
Yeah, I mean, I've got Gabriel. So technically, I if I save money a bit elsewhere from my other transfer, I could actually get him in now, just leave him on the bench. But it does seem a lot for the fixtures not being good, and so that's why I'm thinking ahead a bit and just maybe going for a Botman, and that doesn't rule out Trippier. In fact, that probably might aid me to get Trippier because I've saved a bit of money there for that defensive slot. Okay.
Yeah, and a double. You could do a double up easily, couldn't you?
Yeah, I do think that as well. Saka is next. Good to see him assist Imminent there, which is what he should be out on the wing. But he's also got that goal threat, but perhaps not on penalties. 5 chances created, 8 corners, 1 goal so far, 2 successful crosses, no assists. Should have got a little bit of an assist. The expected God's decree. And Foden, we mentioned a lot there. It's just that expected minutes, but yeah, it's no denying he's class. And if he's going to play, he's a great player to have in. But I still think I think his price will go up if he plays, but I still think there'll be people like me who will hesitate. But there might come a point where you can no longer hesitate, where he's scoring and assisting each week. You just got to get him in.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to move, before we move on to our teams, and towards the end, do have a think about some questions in the live chat and put them to him. Do remember to put a question mark on so I can easily see them. But I thought I'd to recap some common mistakes that FPL managers make, including myself or including everyone who plays, whether you've been playing a long time or you're new to the game as well. And I thought it's timely now because a lot of players like me I've had a bad game week. So I got 31, which is pretty bad. And I was actually quite pleased when I got a breach the 30 mark. So rather than 20. But there was other people got, say, 40 or so. Maybe they were saved by Mbomo, but and they got a Stupinan points. But other than that, the rest of their team blanked. So it's one of those weeks where you can get annoyed by that, and you can sort of panic a little bit. So these are the 5 common mistakes, and this is on a video that we did in pre-season. I pinned it to my Twitter, or rather X account, which my Twitter and X account is on the screen. Both mine and Tom's are, and that's FFScout. That's FFScout _ Joe JOE. These are the 5 common mistakes, and have a look at that video. The main is basically the mistakes they make at this time where you feel like tilting away from what is reasonable and sensible. Remember, not planning is a common mistake. So all the things we've just been talking about, Chelsea's fixtures are good, Brentford fixtures are good, then Newcastle's get good at game week 5, etc., etc. Think about that and plan and make sure any transfers you are going to do have those in mind. Don't just get last week's points, get hopefully next week's points. Wasting chips. A lot of people might be wildcarding now. I think we're going to see some wildcards fluttering around at the moment.
Next week especially, I think we will.
When you come to rearrange your team to shoehorn Salah back in, or perhaps there'll be a particular fixture run in a game week 8-9 time, you'll probably wish you had your chip then. So try not to waste it, and don't waste it on things like bench boost and all that kind of business. They are much better in a double game week, which is later in the season. Being stubborn, all of the things I just said. If I stuck to all of those, I'd be stubborn. I've got to keep an open mind. Perhaps it could be sensible to use a chip now, an early wild card, and perhaps it could be sensible to look at the next game week and less plan. For example, I planned with Manchester United, but they haven't been so good. Perhaps if I'd invested a little bit in Wolves, I wouldn't be in such a sorry shape. So being stubborn, taking in too much noise, lots of views on Twitter, lots of views from me and Tom coming out here. We are not right. Anyone who says they are right is wrong. People like us who say we're wrong, we could be wrong, we could be right. They're the ones to follow there. Keep an open mind and don't take in too much noise. People who say, it's my way or the highway, probably not the best ones to follow. And there's a lot of noise going on. Try and sort of ration what you go and, turn FPL off. Don't look at it each day, week. Don't be tempted into, making moves. And panicking, this is overall, really. This is it. So you've had a terrible game week score. Everyone around you seems to have a great game week score. What do? You panic. You start making early moves. So we're already seeing it. Now, Fernandes and Rashford face Nottingham Forest this weekend. Yet people removed them yesterday. Give them that game. Don't panic too much. Afterwards, make a considered judgment. Also, watch Team News on Friday, their video and podcast there, and keep an eye on those press conferences because information is key. For example, you might have seen a yellow flag on one of your players, Maddison, for example, or seen him in a protective boot, and you want to remove him immediately for another player, but he might be fine. He could be absolutely fine. We've seen that with Bruno Fernandes before, in his protective boot, and then he got up and played a full 90 minutes a few days later. So it's that sort of panicking, really. And the other thing, the last thing I'll just mention here is treat it with humour. So was I annoyed that I got 31 points? Was I annoyed that I didn't get Gabriel in? Didn't get Saliba in for Gabriel because I was cooking rice, basmati rice, as I revealed last week. Yes, but you got to treat it with the humour it is. I'm basically cooking rice and I'm worried about who's playing for Arsenal. So Travis on Twitter, or now X, kindly mocked up a new Arsenal player called Basmati. He's a potential third Arsenal asset. So that is in honour of the rice I was cooking when others got Saliba in for Gabriel. So I'm 11 points down. I'm obviously going to dwell on it, but I'm going to dwell on it with humour because it is... Look, I mean, first game I went to, as I've said many, many times here, first Brighton game I went to, no one told me that people threw toilet roll onto a pitch. No one said your S words at the goalkeeper the opposition goalkeeper whenever they took a free. No one told me these things, and so I saw that all the first time, and I thought it was so silly and funny. And I've thought football was silly and funny ever since. FPL is even sillier and even funnier. So yeah. Anyway, that's the way you should look at it. Okay, just want to move on to your team. What's your top tip if you had a bad game week?
Well, I think just looking at those common mistakes, the being stubborn one is an important one. And we go into this game with a lot of preconceived ideas about players. I think of John Stones and Gundogan as well. A couple of years back, they were ridiculed a bit, but then they have these positional tweaks, and suddenly you've got to forget what's happened in the past and look at how they're playing now in isolation. So that would be important. I mean, I struggle to switch off from the game. So even when I've had a bad game week, people say, I'll go out for a walk, forget about it. I kind of struggle with that a lot. I tend to immediately shift my focus to the next game week, and I kind of go all in on that. So I kind of, even if we're midway through a game week, if it's going badly, forget about that kind of game week too much and immediately start thinking about the next game week, thinking about matchups, watching highlights, looking at stats and things. But it is difficult. It's easy to say look at it with humour, but it's sometimes it gets you sometimes. And I can't. I struggle to switch off. It doesn't help working at Fantasy Football Scout because it's constant.
It's your job.
Yeah, exactly. But maybe that sometimes helps too as well because you look at it through a different lens. And maybe I watch games in a little bit of a different way now as well. But I think just try and look ahead. This game week will be gone pretty quickly. If you're in it, you won't be thinking about game week 2 come Friday, Joe. So
I've
that's
looked
the way
at
I
my
would
score and my league positions once. And that's
that's the right.
Not dwelling on it. I'm looking at next week, which is what we're all here for.
And let's be honest, the positions mean very, very little. Well, they don't mean anything at this stage in the season. In most of my mini leagues, there's probably 20 pip points separating the top and the bottom, which you can overhaul in a week easily.
Yeah, so. Definitely. It's not until game week 10 or something that you can look at rank and think, what you can do about it. So that's like a quarter of the season gone after 2 games.
Pointless.
And most of my leagues, there's only 10, 20 points in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, speaking of next week, moving on. This is your team. Do you want to read out your team? Tell us who you're captaining, and also what's the many transfer decisions I guess you've got to make with 2 free transfers and a great team by the looks of it.
Yeah, well, that's the point. I don't really know what I'm going to do, but I'll read out the team anyway. So I've got Onana in goal at home to Forest. 3 home defenders, Saliba, Estupinan and Chilwell. 5 players playing at home in midfield, Saka, Mbomo, Odegaard, Fernandes and Rashford. And then I've got Jackson and Haaland up top, captaincy on Haaland. Be very surprised if that shifts. And a reasonable bench. I've got Turner, Udogie, who's looking good, Mark Gahey and Cameron Archer as well.
Okay, and have you got any in the bank for this?
No. So absolutely zilch. 2 free transfers. Yeah, so, and it's hard to know what to do.
So there's lots of people at the moment moving either Watkins or Pedro to Jackson, depending on how much they got in the bank. That's popular. There's lots of people moving one of their midfielders to Mbomo. That's going to be popular. There will be lots of Gabriel owners wondering what to do. All of the problems that I've just mentioned, all of the potential transfers you've already got in place. So you've got 2 free transfers. Are you going to use 2? Because I can't see why you would. Are you going to use 1? Are you just going to burn it and be really cool?
Well, it's all up in the air. I don't think I've ever burnt a transfer, but maybe I will this week. Yeah. But no, I think there'll be something to do, I'm sure. I mean, I looked ahead to game week 4 with my defence. That isn't a great week. Arsenal play Man United. Estupinan plays Newcastle. Now, I think you could quite easily play Estupinan in that fixture, but he might be relying on attacking returns. Okay. But I've planned well for that. I've got Udogie who plays Burnley. I've got Gahey who plays Wolves, and they can quite easily come in. So I don't see myself doing anything in defence. I don't have a Man City defender, and I would like one. But who am I going to take out of that bunch with nothing in the bank? It would have to be Estupinan, and I'm not doing that ahead of a home game against West Ham.
I guess the only thing you can do here, because you can't bench any of that 11, is obviously if there is some injury news that comes out, obviously you've got those 2 transfers to move there. But I mean, I would use 1 just on the bench to see if there's anything you could maybe do better. And that's really tough. So possibly Areola instead of Turner. I can see you would actually play Areola when West Ham's fixtures improve. The doggy you're keen with. I mean, Palace defender 4.5. You can't really argue with that. Maybe
I'm not selling them.
If you're not sure Archer's moving, maybe some cheap strikers have emerged, haven't they?
They have, yeah. I mean, you've just I've got a few notes in front of me, Joe, and you've just gone through exactly what I was thinking, really. I mean, I do like Sterling this week, and I like Foden, but like you say, there's no midfielder I'm taking out there. So it probably will be a bench move. Now, if I switched Turner to Areola, that helps me in game week 4 when Man United go to Arsenal. Now, Turner in that game week goes to Chelsea, so I wouldn't want to play either of them. And West Ham go to Luton. So that would help me in game week 4 a little bit. Okay. It might not help me in game week 5, though, because Man United play Brighton at home. Again, I probably wouldn't want to play Onana then. That's when Forest have their good fixture. They play Burnley at home. So and West Ham don't have a good fixture that week. They play City. So I don't know. It might be something I do, but it's not. It's not something it could cause a problem in one of those weeks regardless. So Archer to Semenyo, who's emerged at Bournemouth as he started at Anfield. He's got a couple of attacking returns. Maybe if I go to him, I don't think he's nailed either. I might get a price rise. If he does something against Spurs, he might get a price rise, and that might be all I'm looking at. I don't really like using these transfers on a 4.5 switch, but. And this goes back to last week. We spoke about it, Joe, and I said I knew this position was coming, and I said, well, I can make a midfield transfer this week, and the transfer was Odegaard to Luis Diaz, and I was hovering over the button 6 o'clock on Friday. Now that would have cost me 4 points if I made that move. So maybe sometimes it's better to just do nothing. Trust the team that you've picked. You've picked these players for a reason, and maybe it will just be that 4.5 million forward. Because in game week 4, I'm definitely going to want 2 free transfers. Fernandes and Rashford, one of those guys might go. Saka or Odegaard might go. I want Newcastle in game week 5, so I'll use one. I'll use either none or one transfer this week. I definitely won't choose two unless we get a big injury.
Okay, so for some people like me, for example, looking to use two transfers this week, for you, it's a case of just using that one, and it's game week 4, game week 5. That's when you're going to want your 2 free transfers. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing else you can do. I mean, that's a good position to be in. Having said that, team news is out on Friday, and we never know.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know.
Yeah. There's Villa are playing tomorrow. Not that that's going to impact me, but it could impact others. I think Watkins and Diaby will probably start that one. Yeah. So there's still plenty of information to come out before we have to make a decision.
Okay, I'll just go through my team in a sec. Do put those questions in the live chat. We've got some time for them at the end of the show, and do put a question mark on them. So put your questions in while I'm chatting about my team. I suspect some of my problems might be common to other people as well, so there might be some questions about them. So I have some problems here, which I didn't think I was going to have after game 1, which shows you how vital information is. If I'd have gone in, I had lots of players who were away, so I didn't expect too much. But they've got good fixtures this week, but some issues perhaps. So I've got Onana in goal, Estupinan, Chilwell, and Henry from my bench. I've been benching him the last couple of weeks. Missed out on his clean sheet, although they did get booked, and an assist. So not too many points, but nevertheless they were points, which I could have done with. So Henry earns himself a place. So Q is a goal, but nevertheless he's there. He's deserved his place in my 11. Henry there against Crystal Palace. I've got Maddison, who is flagged currently because of that situation with that protective boot that was on. I've got Rashford.
I do. Sorry, Joe, just to interrupt. I do have an update on James Maddison, which has just come in. This is from Paul O'Keefe, who is a little bit of an in the know, I think, of Spurs.
Last season.
He says he believes James Maddison injury is actually a minor MCL strain, and the ankle foot injury is not significant. Recovery is possible quickly, and he could even make the weekend. But that seems to be an optimistic shout, and I would expect Tottenham to be cautious. So
that means
not serious, but probably not playing this week. That's what I take from.
So I'll just complete the rest of my team, and then I'll
explain how.
No, because that is vital. The Maddison news is vital to how I'll change things, and it could be for other people who own him as well. So I've got Rashford and Fernandes. We've spoken about them a lot. Nottingham Forest at home, they've got to play them. Saka and Martinelli at home to Fulham. They have to be fielded. I've got João Pedro. West Ham, will he play? I'm quite happy for him to be in my side if he's going to play. Will he though? And Cissé was arguably more effective for Brighton than he was. And Haaland is my captain up front. And on the bench, I've got Turner, Gabriel, who is a problem, but while he's on my bench, he's not. I mean, I can afford to bench him this time out.
Yeah.
It's just whether I want to suck up those price drops. And Bayer, he's playing Aston Villa for Burnley, and Archer is there as well. Okay, oh my God! And another Garrick in the live chat has said, in case Joe is wondering, which I wasn't, but I am now. Gabriel scored in both games versus Fulham last season.
Yeah,
I
remember. And Fulham are looking shaky as well this year.
I played him through I had no choice but to play him in first game week because I didn't see the news. Game week 2, I played him for his 1 point, knowing he could get 1 point, but he could also score against Crystal Palace. And now Garrick's tempting me again. This makes me want to remove him because I want the whole Gabriel issue gone from my team. Yeah. I don't want to even think about it and think, well, look, I would have benched him anyway, wouldn't have got those points. Okay, so Brentford and Chelsea are on my mind. I already have a bit of Chelsea and Brentford with Henry and Chilwell, but I'd like a bit more. I've got 1.5 million in the bank. I'm very happy with the 352 still. I'm just and the sort of price points I've got, I'm fine with. I don't want to get Salah, for example, this week, so no surgeries needed. So if Maddison is out this week, I am even tempted to remove him this week, in not bench him. I could bench him. I could bench Maddison and have him in place, but I can easily get him to Mbomo. And Bomo, I think, is a key player. He has relied on penalties, but nevertheless, he's on penalties at a team that wins lots of penalties. And he's one of those players at the moment, when you see the result and and the team has scored, he will be involved. So
it's either him or Wizard, isn't it? They've got they're going to they're going to be involved. They'll combine a lot as well together. Right.
So Pedro is a problem as well, and so is Gabriel. So there's those three problems there, three issues there: Maddison, Pedro, and Gabriel. I'm thinking of Pedro to Wissa
Jackson.
if I don't get Mbomo. So if I don't get Mbomo for Maddison, I'll get Wissa for Pedro. But I'll probably get, if Maddison is a serious doubt this weekend, I'm tempted to remove him from Bomo and then go back onto Maddison. Sort of, they use it in Sky a lot, this sort of daisy chain move. So essentially, I'll be using two transfers, but I'm still just getting in players I really want for that time. I wouldn't be getting Maddison to Mbomo and then removing Mbomo. I would be using perhaps one of the Manchester United players.
Yeah.
So I would be getting Mbomo in, then he stays, and then one of Rashford or perhaps Martinelli or Saka, one of the Arsenal midfielders or Manchester United midfielders, goes back to Maddison. So that's something I'm considering there, and that gives me Mbomo. And then that frees me up loads of money there, of which I could field 4-5-1 perhaps and get Manchester City defender in, but I'm not keen on those minutes risk. So I think I would use that money to get Pedro to Jackson and leave it at that. So leave the same structure, just Maddison, Pedro, and Jackson and Mbomo. So that removes two problems and just keep Gabriel on my bench. I've done this. I've done these sort of videos before with players like, I think Neil's quite good at doing this. If he's got a problem, he doesn't worry about the price drop. He'll just park him on the bench until he can decide what to do with him. And I don't want another defender. There's no particular defender I want. I mean,
no.
Saliba, I've heard, is very good, but then he plays Manchester United the week after.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that now. I don't think I'd do that move now. No. You've got 1.5 in the bank, did you say, Jay? Yeah, I think the Maddison update feels critical, doesn't it? Yeah. Because if we're left wondering, because the fixtures after Bournemouth are Burnley and Sheffield United, so very good fixtures. If Ange comes out and says, look, he won't be ready this week, but he'll be ready the week after, then I might be tempted to keep him, I think. But if he comes out and if there's uncertainty over it, I could understand you moving it. I think I'd be tempted to just do Pedro to Jackson if it does look like he's going to be a lot a player. And I would actually probably bring Gabriel into this because I think he will play given that Tommy asks. But I've said this before, and I said this last week, and I got it badly wrong. So do what you want to do.
I mean, there's lots of talk about that. That one of the Saudi clubs is in for him, and it's possible that he wants to go, but Arsenal don't want him to go, and Arteta may be cheating him because of that. Because I can't see why you wouldn't play Gabriel. And he even said that Gabriel was good. Even Arteta even praised him afterwards. So, but the thing about Gabriel is just having him on my bench and then him doing really well would be annoying. Getting rid of him just means it's someone else's problem or points. Nothing.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone would, even if you sell him and he does well. I don't think people who do that. I don't think they should feel too hard on themselves because he's been benched twice now. Nobody saw it coming, but it's happened.
I'd be tempted to perhaps go for a 4-5. I don't know. João Pedro's the issue really. So João Pedro to Jackson, and then I've got a decision to make on Maddison. But I think in terms of maximising my points this week, which is what I'm trying to do, and Bowman in, Jackson in, I think they're good fixtures, good little fixture run, and then I've got lots of midfield spaces to get Maddison
everything becomes a bit easier to move players around next week because. Arsenal have then got Man United and Tottenham in the next three. Yeah. Man United have got Arsenal and Brighton back to back. So suddenly you don't mind losing one of their players.
Another thing I was thinking actually would be to bench Maddison and go for this. Go for a 4-4-2 and get rid of Gabriel because I hate him and get Colwell in. and so I've got a
and double up at the back.
double up at the back there. And because it's the good fixtures now, and Cole was 4.5, so I can easily do that. Pedro to and just go all out on Chelsea there. But I think I do prefer the other option. I don't know. Lots to think about. I'm not in next week as well because I'm away, so doesn't matter. So I'll deal with it humorously. My bad week, humorously, privately, not in public. Let's have some questions then. Let's get some questions going here. Okay, I will go back up the list here and see what I can find with a question mark. Right, West Ham and Newcastle at home coming up for Brighton attackers. Which would you prefer for those games? What would you prefer?
Which Brighton attacker for West Ham and Newcastle is this?
Yeah, who do you think would? I mean,
well, Solly Marsh is making it very difficult to look elsewhere. And I mean, I really like those comments that he made about being challenged to score 15 goals. I think that applied to both wingers. Yeah. But if we look at the stats so far, Marsh has been the goal threat and Matoma has been doing what he does. He's scored a wonder goal, but he's been more of that creator role. And I like Solly Marsh. We put him in the differentials in Gameweek 1 because we thought he was going a bit under the radar, and he's kind of he's delivered on that promise so far. But you, as the expert resident Brighton fan, Joe, what would you say?
Well, I mean, it's to do with who's going to play. I thought Pedro was going to start, and Ciso got the nod. He could very well stick with that. In which case, Ciso would be great value to get in. Busy, reliable. Yeah, I think it's between, as it was the end of last season, March and Matoma, and March has. He's not as accurate, but he has a lot of chances. There's a lot of chances to score. I think it's a case of, because of the way their fixtures are, I possibly wouldn't be thinking about getting one of their players in because most people would have one of their players. So for me, I'll be removing Pedro because he's no longer nailed, and it'd be one of Matoma or March, who also can be. Now there are options to play there, but the thing with Matoma and March, if they're bench one week, I get the feeling they'll be back the next week. Yeah. With Pedro, that may happen, that may not. I don't know. But Zerbi has just basically said March is amazing. I love him. He's always said Matoma's great. I think he said something about fatigue towards the end of last season. But Pedro, 2 games in, we're already getting sort of criticism about tracking back and things like that, about pressing. So I'm... That just gives me alarm bells. So get the nailed on player and take it.
With Europe coming up, I think you probably agree, Joe, that Matoma is more likely to get more minutes maybe in and around then than Marsh. Do you think in Europe, or do you think you'll rotate heavily in Europe?
I genuinely have no idea, and I think there is pressure on content creators and people on Twitter to give an opinion about that, but it's so difficult. I'm part of that crew that tries to predict Brighton team sheets. We all got it wrong this week. None of us thought in CISO, so it is tricky. I think whoever you got, stick with unless you think they're a rotation risk, which I think Pedro is now. But Matoma or March. Okay, let's move down the list. Let's for question marks. Mixing. Is it a good idea to bring in Brighton assets like Matoma now? I think if you've got that space, I would go for Mbomo rather than Matoma.
Yeah. I mean, they've got, after this week, got Newcastle and Man United. There's better midfielders to target now.
Pascal Gross is addicted to scoring against Manchester United. Just as so that answer both those questions there. Pascal Gross appearing on all of our tables, and I do think maybe I will get him in because like every time this happens, he's on these tables and he plays Manchester United. I think I'll get him in, and he always does well. Okay, with Timber and Tomiyasu out, surely Gabriel is a starter by default, says Pratik. Was what you were saying, and what blooming the other guy was telling me in the chat as well about how he keeps scoring against Fulham.
He isn't certain to start it. No way. I think he does, but we said this last week and I got it wrong. Zinchenko's coming back to fitness. Kivior's there. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes here, and it's impossible to say that he's certain to start. I think he will, but I don't know for sure.
Aston Villa Boise said Cunha and Neto, surely, Joe, because we were talking about them earlier. Well, when they score, you come back here and Tom and David will be full of beaming away. And if they haven't, they'll just forget about it.
Well, yeah, that's a good tactic. Yeah.
Okay. William Olofsson, who was talking about the rudimentaries of the game earlier, but he's now being a bit more expert. Lo Celso is probably going to play against Bournemouth, he thinks, if Mendes David Madison. Bang on. That's exactly what will happen, I think. So that's why I might move Madison. Who are the... Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, but don't buy Lo Celso because...
No.
it won't be a long-term move.
Yeah, it's more about people either considering getting Madison in or with him. Who are the Chelsea set-piece takers? Our Soldier Boy.
Well, it's been... Yeah, set pieces. So Chilwell was quite prominent at corners in pre-season. He didn't take any against Liverpool, but in his 60-minute run out against West Ham, he did take, I think, one or two. Enzo Fernandez takes them on the other side. He took a lot of free kicks as well. Penalties up for grabs. So, Fernandez will take the majority. Chilwell will have a bit of a say as well, I would think. So
let's talk vinyl. Asks, what about a bench boost this weekend? I will quickly put that slide up again. 5 common FPL mistakes. Wasting chips. Using a bench boost. There is perhaps merit, but when a double game week comes along with all these teams playing twice, you can possibly want it then.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're going to have quite as much upheaval this year as we did last year. Obviously, the Queen's death took out a whole weekend of matches which needed to be rearranged. So I don't think we're going to get a situation like that, which means that there'll be smaller double game weeks later in the year. But it's team dependent, isn't it? But I don't like the idea of playing it this early in the season. I certainly haven't got a squad to do that. I haven't built a bench boost squad. I've got 4.5 million attackers on the bench. That's not utilising the bench boost well enough, in my opinion. Some people like to get out of the way. Some people think of it as a bit of a weight on their shoulders, don't they? I quite like the idea of having it in my back pocket though, because it's something to keep in for that second half of the season. And if you land it, and if it kicks off in a good double game week, it's going to be great. I've played it in irregular game weeks before, and it's actually done quite well. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's very squad dependent, but I'm not really feeling it this week with the teams I'm seeing.
No, I think from my experience, a bench boost is best with a wild card. So you've got that wild card to prepare for the bench boost, then you can work your way out of that bench boost afterwards, and or use it the other way around, go into a bench boost and then wild card out of it, but use a wild card with a bench boost and around double game weeks. That's it might not get you lots of points, but that's going to give you the best chance, I think, of lots of points. Yeah,
and you look at a lot of people who've got a 4 million keeper on the bench. I wouldn't want to be bench boosting with Turner or Areola this week. So yeah, it's not a bad thing to have it in your pocket and just keep hold of it for a few months and then look to use it next year.
And Nihao is wondering about getting Mbomo and Wissa as a double up. Yeah, I think if you've got one already, get the other. I mean, I could get both. I'm tempted by that, actually. I think they're both good. It is Brentford, and I have doubled up on Manchester United. I've doubled up on Arsenal. These are good sides, and that's not helped me so far. So I'm just sort of treading a bit more lightly, personally. But I wouldn't say that's a bad option, though.
They've got very good fixtures, haven't they? But I would worry about game week 5, things like that, when they go to Newcastle and you've got 2 Brentford attackers. You might want another strong sub to maybe when they do have that difficult fixture. Yeah. And Brentford aren't notoriously a prolific side, so you're going to have to hope that they keep on dominating, which I think they probably will. You said earlier when you get a goal notification, one of them's probably going to be involved. I'm not quite there with the double up yet, but the fixtures are certainly good.
Best City defender, asks FPL Rays. Gvardiol, Akanji, Diaz. Oh, let's add some more into the mix. Stones when he's back fit after the international break. Ake as well, Rico Lewis. And that answers my question. They're all good. Which 4 are going to start? Walker as well. I forgot to mention him as well.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the problem.
Diaz is the most secure, I think, there. Of course, Edison as well. But Manuel Akanji has a habit of keep starting even when you don't expect him to.
Okay.
Now, I don't think he's going to play every game, but he's a bit cheaper than those other options. I think he's 5.1. I think I'd go for Diaz if I was going to go for a City defender. And I do think they're great at options now, especially before this European football kicks in as well, because I think they're going to keep a bit more of a settled side.
If I one of the permutations I was describing, boring myself with even, does involve getting a Man City defender in. Gvardiol is where my instinct goes if I can't afford Diaz. But I do think you're right. I just don't think he'll get as many minutes as Diaz.
Yeah, I just worry with Gvardiol that Ake is still there. He plays in his position. He's going to get. He's not just going to be surprised if he's suddenly off the radar completely. He's a player Pep likes, so that's difficult. Akanji maybe gives a bit of flexibility, but this is City, isn't it? Outside of Haaland and probably Ederson, that rotation risks and that it depends how much you want to risk it by getting these players in, especially the 5 million defenders. But Diaz should be I think a bit more secure.
Lots of defender questions. Vignash, similar theme. Gabriel owner, City, Spurs, or Chelsea. Double up for defender. I personally would veer towards the Chelsea defensive double up just because of the fixtures at the moment, and you can get Colwell and Chilwell for pretty good value.
I wouldn't touch a Spurs defence double up. So no way.
And City defence. You would think you're halving the odds, but you're not. You're doubling the threat of rotation. You could end up with two. There's so many good defenders there. You might end up with two who aren't playing, that would be more annoying than not getting Gabriel out for Saliba while cooking rice at 6:27 on a Friday night. That's how annoying that would be.
And it locks you out a second attacker as well. Dependent on what happens, Foden now, Alvarez. Given the fixtures, Sheffield United, Fulham, West Ham, Forest, Wolves, we might want to add that second attacker to it, and that locks you out of it. So,
if you were minded to remove a Manchester United player before their Nottingham Forest game for Mbomo, which of Rashford or Fernandes? I think we both covered that earlier. It would probably be Rashford if you were going to, but I wouldn't remove either before Nottingham Forest myself.
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I do think this Brentford game, they're playing Palace. Palace, they're a decent team. We saw last night they made it difficult. They benefited from the red card, of course. But I think the Brentford game that you really want Mbomo for is the week after against Bournemouth and against Everton and Forest. So I think it can. If I owned a Man United double, I would keep them this week and then get Mbomo next week, I think.
William Olofsson has been in the chat again, pointing out that he's new to FPL, not football. Hence his expert knowledge about the Spurs midfield options.
It's a good shout.
But less knowing about the rules of FPL. Sorry there, William. But yeah, good shout on that.
You'll be fine if you know about football.
If you know about football, and we just
you'll be all right.
And to be honest, that's the basic of it, the hits thing.
Oh, absolutely.
And avoid taking them from now on.
Yeah.
And then that's it. You should do okay if you know about football. Just a time for a couple of quick more. Would you swap Matoma for Mbomo from Tom Gledhill? I don't know. I don't think I would. No. Mbomo
maybe the week after.
Maybe the week after. Not now. But yeah, when Europe kicks in a bit more. But then they're both in Europe. Brentford aren't in Europe. Sorry.
And that's why. Well, they were close, weren't they? They were just behind us. But penalties as well for Mbomo is a real big thing, as we've seen in the first two game weeks.
And he has been relying on them. I mean, put it this way though, he's not going to get 38 penalties a year. No. I think the most I've ever seen was somewhere. I think James Milner, Steven Gerrard for Liverpool. I think they got about 10 or 12 one season.
Yeah, and Fernandes as well went through that season with United where he got a lot, didn't he?
So you could be expecting one every sort of 3 or 4 games. So he's sort of overperforming in terms of the penalties at the moment, but nevertheless, he's got lots of other potential.
I still think, he's fine for a cheap asset, isn't he? So.
Mark Brown, Richarlison still a hold, yes. Good fixtures for Spurs.
As annoying as he has been owning him, and it must have been annoying. I think you've got to stick with him now for these next 3.
And I've just end one here because it's about a Villa player. Similar theme, lots of love for Mbomo. But would you swap Diaby, from your team Villa, for Mbomo this week?
Yeah, I probably would. I
Yeah, okay.
think because see what happens in Europe tomorrow. But I think he starts that one, and I do think the second leg, depending on how it's pitched, if it's 1-1 tomorrow or we win narrowly, the next leg is next week. There's only 7 or 8 days between the two matches. So again, this weekend, if we go to Burnley and we're 2-0 up after 60, 70 minutes, and we've got an important playoff again next week, again, it came up on 63 minutes at the weekend. We could see something like that again. Away at Burnley, I don't think that's going to be an easy match. I think they've only played City so far, haven't they? That's a hard gauge to know how good they are, because City are going to dominate everybody. But I think they'll be up for that one. We're not as good away as at home either. We've been very good at home for a long time under Emery. Away from home, we struggle a bit more. So, yeah, I think I don't think you have to make that move, but I think it is a move depending on what happens tomorrow that I'd consider.
Okay, excellent. Thanks to everyone who's joined us in the live chat. Sorry we didn't answer all of your questions, but I think we got through as many as we could, particularly those ones on defenders. Hope we've given you some good advice. If you had a bad game week, chin up. Look at it. Yeah. It's all gone now. So water under the bridge, and you got the next game week to look forward to. So hopefully we've set you up with some differential ideas, and in particular my transfer plans are much more of a muddle. So that'll probably make you feel better about your own ones.
I think a lot of people are in that position now. I think it's that stage of the week, isn't it?
Yeah. And if you had a bad game, don't look at Tom's team because it was really good. And he had a good week. He's got a great team this week.
Yeah, but there was that Odegaard. I mean, that's not down to my good decision making. I got lucky with that, and I might be on the wrong side of it next week. FPL has a habit of building you up and then whacking you back down. So, but it might be somebody else next week. We don't know.
Certainly happened with me. A great game week 1, game week 2, one to forget. Onwards and upwards. Game week 3. Thanks for joining us, Tom. Thanks everyone. See you soon. Good luck with your game week.
Cheers, Joe.